Man, the music's got me fired up, man. Thinking about all those former celebrity Ironman racers.
We were reminiscing before we went live on back in the day when chocolate milk was one of the big time Ironman sponsors, and you had Apollo Ono, Gordon Ramsay, and Heinz Ward.
Those were the days, man.
Those were the days. I wonder how many athletes that got started during those are still with us. But you're still with us. You're tuning in. It is a beautiful day here in Overland Park, Kansas. Clear skies, about 58 degrees. It's October 27th, 2022. Welcome aboard, folks. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 629.
All right. And oddly enough, I had written down 6:30, even though we just talked about that.
I did the exact same thing. I wrote down 629 and 6:30. But listen, guys, as you know, that's how organized we are. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. And your time is very valuable. So we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk a lot about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I both work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes looking at their very first sprint or 5K, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to Kona, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we'll use the feedback loop we have with them from Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question and before I even go any further. I was admitting people to the Crushing Iron Group this morning, and because I was up way too early, and one of the responses was, the question is, what do you like about the podcast? And the answer was, I like Mike, period.
No way, come on.
Yeah, I mean, then they said something else, but no mention of me. It was just, I like Mike. I was like, so I almost went, decline.
Dumped.
No, I let him in, of course. Let him in. But we have that group. It's a great community. Outside of those that hate me for a parent for some reason. Great resource. Again, awesome community. Very, very valuable insight and wisdom from a wide range of athletes, from beginners and some, honestly, not even beginners. They're thinking about being a beginner. They haven't even done a triathlon, but they're in the group trying to answer some questions and get started and rock and roll, and maybe even their first sprint, all the way up through Ironman champions, everyone in between. So it's a really amazing group and an awesome community, very supportive and very knowledgeable. Hopefully can prevent you from running into some of the same headaches and obstacles that we all have in the last forever that we've been doing this. And we'll go in there sometimes and do a Q&A like last week. But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We definitely don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
I'd like to say hi to my new friend in the group, whoever that was.
I wish I could remember their name.
I like you too.
I like Mike, period. I had to do a double take. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I like you too.
This is my life always. I'm always the second fiddle.
I don't know, man. I think you're kind of more like Johnny Carson, and I'm like Ed McMahon. Kind of like the guy kind of hangs on the sidelines, but you need both, but you're kind of driving the charge a lot more. But hey, I'll drive the charge sometimes. Sometimes Ed was the front man.
Yeah, and he should. I mean, but yeah, listen, the fact is,
do you remember him?
Yes, I remember him. The fact is, you're just more likable. I mean, you definitely, well, at least on the air, you're more likable. You don't say nearly other controversial things that could piss people off like I do, like getting rid of AWA racks and putting, volunteers there. Yeah, you steer clear, at least on the air. Off the air, you guys probably like me a little bit better. But hey, we're on the air. We love you. And again, we appreciate everybody. Busy. Listen, I keep saying like the year is going to calm down, and it's not. 70.3 World Championships are this weekend. The females go off tomorrow on Friday, and the men will kick off on Saturday. Obviously, it's in Utah, so there's no racing on Sunday. I got to say something before we go. What we're doing is we're going to do a quick little preview of the course. I'm going to throw in some predictions that are sure to go wrong. But I can't tell you how much I despise the 70.3 World Championships being after the Ironman World Championships now. They
Oh,
used to always be before, always. Clearwater, Vegas, even I believe when it was, man, I'm not sure Nice was before or after Kona, but it was always before, always. And what you had was you had the biggest players in that were going to go to Kona, and from the professional standpoint, um, they wanted to do the double. They wanted to win 70.3. They wanted to be the 70.3 world champion, and they wanted to be the Ironman world champion within the same, like, I think it was usually like the 6 to 8 week time span. I think it used to be like early September, at least when they did it in Vegas. And I know when they did it in Clearwater. And you had people like Craig Alexander who doubled up. You had, I think, Leanda Cave, actually, the year that she won it, she doubled up. Daniela Reef has done it. And now that it's like, what, 3 weeks post Kona, like in the same month, and it's the shorter distance after the big one, you're like, you just don't get the same field. You just don't. And so while it's a 70.3 world championships, you're not having the Ironman world champion there. You're not going to have Daniela Reef there. You're going to have, some of the big, Luke Charles Barkley will be there. And the rest of them are more kind of like 70.3 specialists, which I get, which is a great thing. But I think it's awesome for age groupers to see the versatility of the sport and how you can be great at both. And obviously, on the men's side, you're still going to have some of the heavy hitters with Gustav Iden and Christian Blumenfeld there that just did Kona. And I think even Magnus Detlev. But yeah, it takes away the luster. It's kind of like you peak, and then it's kind of like now 70.3 world championships are an afterthought. And I'm not a huge fan of it. And obviously, we never got a phone call from Andrew Messick from our podcast on Tuesday about how to increase awareness and the customer service experience on the brand. So you won't listen to this either. I think Finland maybe is later in the year. Again, to go back, find a way to go back, and I get having to rotate it and to the different countries. I'm all for that, but the having it right after it messes with a lot of years, and it kind of makes it seem like an afterthought. You're like, oh, you got 70.3 worlds when it used to be like televised, which that's obviously still televised, but it used to be can't miss. And now, I mean, most people aren't even talking about it, or forget it's even going on because Kona happened. Now it's like, we're getting ready for next year.
yeah. It's a little bit like putting the Sweet 16 after the Final Four or something.
It's like the NIT championship after the national championship game.
Boy,
I think it is.
It could be. I don't know. I know that now that they do the women's the next week or something, the women's Final Fours after the men's. I don't really know the answer to that. Maybe we can come up with a combo plan, a Kona 70.3 combo plan to turn you around after doing the World Championships and 3-week turnaround to go to World 70.3 Worlds.
That's it. That'd be a ticket. It's back in St. George. The first time it's been held in the same location since it was held in Vegas. Obviously, before that, it was rotating around. And with 2020 and 2021, a lot of countries said, nope, no thanks, we'll pass. And this is, I think, it's going to be in a 13-month span. The town is going to have had 3 World Championships events. They had 70.3 World Championships last October. Then they had the Ironman World Championships rollover. They had this last May, and then now again. So obviously, listen, the town loves it. So if you're looking for a different location, Ironman, and you want to move it occasionally and keep it in North America, the people in St. George are there. It is a fair course, and that's to say the least. I think one of the things when you're watching on Friday and Saturday, they're both televised. Is one, just how gorgeous it is out there. Every time I watch it, I'm like, man, it looks like a different planet. Mm-hmm. I've never been to the part of the country that's like that. I always say, like, I'd really love to go because it looks just amazing. The swim is hard. It's going to be cold. I've been reading a lot. It's going to be very, very, very cold to start. Like, that's the number one thing I've been telling. We got 10 plus athletes going. And I said, listen, the number one goal for the day, stay warm. That's it. If you stay warm, you'll be fine. It's going to be a chilly morning. The bike course, while challenging, and we touched on this in the Ironman World Championships, and they had it in May. While challenging, I think it's still. I think the run course is what crushes people because the roads are perfect. I mean, they're like perfect asphalt. You've got minimal turns. You've got that one sustained climb, which, to be honest, most people will tell you, like, a sustained longer climb that's gradual is a lot easier on the body than like constant punches, right? pitch here and a pitch there, and then downhill, then uphill. You can just kind of get in a good rhythm. And then you got the huge downhill towards the end, which I think is going to be very, very, very interesting, especially in the men's race. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's the run that's going to crush people. Obviously, the weather is going to be nearly as hot as it was in May, but I think you're going to see a lot of the fireworks come out on the run, and not just the fireworks, but also a lot of non-explosives with people coming off the bike, because that run course, it's a run course. You will win it or lose it on the run. You saw it at last year at Ironman World Championships. You saw it at 70.3. It's a run course. It's brutal, but it's fair. In a different temperature, just like it should be for an Ironman World Championship.
Yeah, pretty excited about it.
Quickly on the predictions, and again, I will probably get wrong. For the women, I'm just going to tell you right now, Taylor Knibb's going to win. Taylor Knibb is a young American. She traditionally does IT racing, but she is an absolute bike monster. If you've watched any of her races in the last year or two, my prediction is she's going to absolutely destroy the field. She won't have the fastest half marathon split, but I predict she is going to come off the bike with at least a 3-minute lead. I think the temperature favors her. She came off way out front at the PTO Dallas Open and basically made everybody look like they were, amateurs cycling. But the heat got to her and she gave up some time. But I'm predicting her for number 1. I'm predicting Paula Findlay, number 2. We'll mention something else about her in a minute. And then I think it's a toss-up. I'd like to say Lucy Charles. You know what? I am. She's really – I've come to like her a lot more the last year or two. And I think she comes in third for the females. But I think Taylor Knibb is the American, wins it. On the men's side, of course, everybody's probably going to pick Gustav Iden and Christian Blumenfeld because they seem to be winning everything these days. But I'm going to pick for my win. I'm actually going to pick Aaron Royal for the W. He's from Australia. Obviously, the course doesn't suit him very well because it's going to be cold. I've got him winning. Then I've got Gustav Iden, and then I've got Sam Long coming in third. But I don't see Christian Blumenfeld on the podium. I'd love to see Detlef on there. Wouldn't be shocked if you saw a young American Jason West on there. He is probably he's up there in terms of some of the best runners in the field. But I think the biggest question for people watching is going to be how much juice do Gustav Iden and Christian Blumenfeld have in the legs after actually having to race hard, right? In an Ironman, they weren't able to put it on cruise control the last 6 miles. Christian was trying to gain on second and hold off, fourth. And Gustav, had to really, really hammer it. He even said so, in his post interview, he was hurting bad at the last 6 miles. So how's that recovery going to look? And then, Sam Long, which is, I think everybody either love him or you hate him, the American. This has been his goal the entire year. So he's going to have super fresh legs. This is his biggest race, peaking, no accidents, no injuries, no nothing. So you should expect something big out of him. And if he doesn't, then I can imagine it'll be kind of frustrating. But those are my picks. And obviously, I think I will be 40% correct.
I'm good with those picks. I've seen Eden and Blumenfeld in a lot of interviews sitting around on couches and stuff. So we'll see how their mindset the Norwegian mindset can turn it around. I'm sure it can, but it's got to be a tough ask to come back from that. But the things you see in the sport nowadays just blow your mind anyway.
It really is kind of crazy.
Like I wouldn't have even thought about that, 5 years ago, probably.
Oh, no way. And well, one of the biggest things you have to look at is the fact that, back in the day, if you were winning an Ironman race, you were in your mid to late 30s, right? Mm-hmm. You raced like once or twice a year because you're old and you can't handle back to back to back to back. Well, these guys are in their 20s. This is like, that's kind of like a semi-hard training week for me, so it'll be interesting to see, once put, it's going to be fascinating just from a coach's standpoint to see how well those two recover, and how deep to the well they had to go. I think obviously the shorter duration obviously lends itself well. And the fact that there aren't really any there aren't any contenders, in my opinion, that are going to be way off the front in the swim. Here's the best case scenario is for Detlef and Royal and who else? Ben Canute to get off way off the front. Eric Lagerstrom and really Because what we didn't see in the Ironman World Championships was you just saw the weakest front pack on the men ever, in terms of like someone really trying to separate and like put some work in. You got a couple of those guys here, so I think you will see some distance, given the course and given the conditions. And then the biggest thing is even though it's cold, and you always talk about, how do people respond to the heat? How are people going to respond to the cold? I think that actually will have a negative effect on Eden and Blumenfeld, in terms of warming up the body and getting ready to go. Which, no matter what, no matter how quote unquote scientific and recovered you are from a full, not just from the physical, right, ask that your body just had to do, but the amount of, again, we talk about this all the time, the amount of, honestly, with those guys, I would say that they might come in mostly fatigued from the amount of interviews and socializing and the mental and emotional impact that has had on on their bodies the last few weeks. I think that'll actually have a bigger impact. We talk about that a lot with jobs and outside stress. Stress is stress. Even good stress is stress. And when you win the Ironman World Championships and everyone wants to talk to you, then that's stress. It's good stress, right? You got sponsors calling, you got interviews you got to do, you got to be on this show, you got to be on that show, you got to answer questions for this article and in this magazine, and your agent's calling and your everybody. It's like it's all energy, and it's not when you're sitting on a resting. So I do think that's going to have honestly probably a bigger impact. I wouldn't be shocked if neither one of them are on the podium, but obviously with those guys, until you see different, I wouldn't. You'll see one of them. You won't see both of them on the podium.
Hold on, my agent's calling.
It's probably the fucking guy this morning that tried to get in the Facebook group saying he hated me and only loved you. That's who it is. That's probably who the guy that's calling you right now. I did slip him his number, no, in all seriousness. Whoever you were, I love you and I appreciate you. Mike is a quite lovable guy. But on to the topic of the day. One of the podcasts I was listening to this morning on the drive to the office was with Paula Findlay. And we've actually talked about her quite a lot. She's one of my favorite female pros. We talked about her at length when we did the Challenge Daytona recap. Anyway, Clash Daytona recap from back in the day when she obliterated the field and just ran away. I'll never forget her post race, commentary was just like, she was like, you never have days like this. And I had one today where everything just went right and I could do everything. And I was listening, and we talked about it then. I kind of went back and chronicled, because again, if you're a newer fan of the sport, which I think a lot of people are, and a lot of people are listening to this podcast, but you might not know that she's been around forever. Like 2011, 2012, she was like the creme de la creme, and she was like she was Canada's queen. She was the next big thing. She was going to win the Olympics. She had so much pressure heaped on her, and we're all built different. Some of us thrive under pressure. Some of us crumble. And I don't know that she necessarily quote unquote crumbled, but she had a horrendous performance and took her a while to get back to it. And now in the last few years, you've seen her really kind of middle distance seems to be her thing. She's never done a full. She does Olympic. She does middle distance and then like the hybrid distance that the PTO puts on. She's one of the strongest cyclists out there at the middle distance. But in listening to her interview, it was funny just how honest about herself and her experiences, which makes her and her partner Eric Laggers from the Other Own podcast and YouTube series. I think it's called That Triathlon Show. That's super popular. But she was just like, yeah, I'm either at the top or I'm a disaster. I'm never anywhere between. I'm just one or the other. And to hear a professional say that it was kind of a marvel, because for age groupers, that would send you out of the sport. For her, and hear her talk about, I'm not really about, the podcast I was trying to get her to, to ask or answer specific questions and give specific answers. She was like, I try not to think about the outcome. I just try to think about the process. And then when race day comes, I just kind of do my thing. And that's like so anti what you hear from a lot of pros. But I also think that's probably why she's been doing this for so long and is still, I think, not even at her best, having watched her races. But I just think it was from a person like that who's been in the sport for so long to have that, to be able to say and kind of like genuinely laugh at it, as in like, yeah, I'm either awesome or I just like suck, is refreshing, right? To not take yourself that seriously, because if you did, you wouldn't be doing it. And how she just continuously committed to still getting better and being a better runner. And she said one quote that I also loved. She said, my only goal with our run training is to stay healthy. If I can stay healthy, I can run. But my only goal in this last run block, because she gets hurt a lot, especially in the run, is to be healthy. That's my only goal in run training. But I think it was there was a lot there that's just great and good, objective, good objective viewpoint for age groupers. It's like, you can have terrible races, you can have great races. Some people have those. Some people are never in between. Some people are always in between. And we just get so frustrated so often with, being in the middle or not having a great result. And then it's, but if you're process oriented and you continue to believe that you've got your best in you, then you've already got one up on the competition, because then you're going to do it longer. If you do it longer, you're going to get better at it. And that's the key to success. So, you and I talked before we went on air about getting older and still believing that we had our best performances, in us. And that's what, drives us. And whether or not we ever get there, because I still think we will, hell, it might even be next year, that no matter what the result is, the result won't be the reward, right? The reward will be that we've been doing this for, 10, 15 years, which is, I got to believe, 3 times as long as most people are in the sport. And that's the reward. So whatever belief system you have to adopt one that allows you to stay in a sport that'll benefit you greatly in a positive manner for a long period of time.
Yeah, man, it's obviously on the topic of longevity. After I had a birthday yesterday, and
birthday, man.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I liked your little message.
You're welcome.
But it's always I turned 59. What the hell? That is like the most bizarre thing on the planet to even think about for me. And so, I had nothing special really, the birthday kind of thing. It's a little bit old, but I went down and I went to Boca del Vista for a little workout yesterday, just a little, go down and hit the pool, because that's where my heart's been lately. And I did a coffee morning. I was at the office and working all morning, and got down to the pool and didn't really have any kind of fueling success the night before or the morning of, and got in the water, and it wasn't really I felt pretty decent because I've been swimming a lot, but I didn't have it, it was just one of those slog through. I was going to kind of do, because I've done it in the past, where you do some kind of monumental swim for your birthday or whatever. I was in the back of my mind, I'm like, maybe I'll go 5,900 today. And then I did that once at 55, and it was kind of cool, but maybe I'll go 59. And I got to about 1,000. I'm like, maybe, is there another number here? 15.9 or something, 1,590 yards or something.
Yeah, something like that.
But I got to like 1,200. I'm like, I'm just done, man. But I felt okay in my last, in my true fashion of, and I think a lot of people are, you get mad. It wasn't mad, but I was like, this sucks, man. I should feel, I've been swimming a lot. I should feel a lot stronger, but for whatever reason, I didn't have it. But I said, all right, I'm going to swim my hardest 50 and my hardest 100 to end it.
Ooh.
Yeah. And
sounds like some responsible I would do.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous. But, in not even feeling that great, not feeling that strong or whatever, I threw down my fastest 50 and fastest 100, I think, ever.
Well, what do you know?
So, but the point of that isn't like I'm fast, but I mean, for me, as I get older, to be able to do that. Now, what that does for me is it sort of sets a baseline, if my thinking is, if I keep swimming and keep working on form and keep getting that mindset more of a swimmer. I love to talk about that because is it Dave Scott? Yeah, Dave Scott. I think I was reading some stuff about him and how one of his big things always has been to watch people who do it well and try to assimilate those motions and those movements and really just kind of emulate their form and things like that. And I think about that in swimming a lot because we teach, the sport is filled with adult onset swimmers like me kind of. And I just think we overthink it. And this has been one of my main goals is just to get the fluidity of swimming going through my body. And so it's just very interesting as you get old like that to be able to do that. So now in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, maybe that's like the benchmark that I should set to get to in a consistent way, because I think it's possible, because I'm definitely not in great shape. Breathing, well, you're going to breathe harder anytime you go hard, but I do think that it's a reasonable sort of target to think about. But, for me, getting older like that, I don't feel like I've really burned it out. And I think I look at sort of these last couple years and what's been going on with, we got the move and we got all this stuff going on and trying, getting the hub going and then leaving and then coming up here. And, you can't really, it's like what you said about Eden and, I was talking about them doing all those interviews and stuff. And when you got a lot of chatter going on up there, it's pretty difficult to keep it focused. And so I almost kind of like came to the conclusion that the last couple years have been, for lack of a better term, sort of recovery-ish type place.
Yeah.
It's almost like you look at a year and you kind of you can't go hard all the time. You set in recovery and all these kind of things. But also I wonder sometimes if you don't need, and I've seen a lot of people leave the sport and then come back. And it's almost like you need a year of hibernation or kind of quasi not doing it how you used to sort of let your body and mind and everything calm down and recover. And then you can kind of get back into it. So I think that kind of, to me, that's when I was thinking about when you mentioned Paula, is that she's either up or down. And so I think sometimes we just need a sort of a forced rest period. And sometimes they're longer than others.
Well, you said there's a lot to unpack there, Michael. You said a few things that stuck out with me and resonated. One is that create a opportunity, right, with your training, with your program, with your schedule. If you're self-coached or with your, if you have a coach or the plan you follow, that instills belief. Because even if it's bullshit, if you still have like genuine belief, then you're gonna be better. Because if you believe in the system and the process and the training, whatever it is, if you believe in it, you're gonna do it. You're gonna be invested, and that's gonna give you the confidence to execute it and to do better, and then to race well. Like there's a lot of people just don't have confidence, right? Or they choose to hang their hat on, they want to go die on the non-confidence hill by choice, and a lot of people talk negative about themselves, and that's. You don't hear the best people in the world talk negative about themselves all the time. In fact, most people probably think they're just too cocky. Mm-hmm. But there's a certain level of self-confidence you have to be successful in everything. And it's just that, I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to figure it out. And while you have to have a plan and you have to have the ability and the information and the training and the fitness to execute it, that kind of fitness that kind of focus and belief in yourself, like as a coach, when you work with, and honestly, that's one of the bigger differences. We talk about gamers and trainers. Gamers, the ones that can go in a race, and you always know they're going to race well, and trainers that, train lights out, and they're kind of like the paper tiger, where they look great on paper and look great on train, and then they go to race day, and you're like, who are you? What are you doing? One of the biggest differences is genuine confidence, not cockiness, just belief. Mm-hmm. Belief that you can figure it out, right? That you will do it. Sometimes are you going to fail? 100%. But if you continue to believe in yourself and do it, then it's going to happen. And so to believe that in your training will just continue and continue and continue to give you bigger and better results. And I just think that's one of the main things that athletes in a society, especially with training, where we're always trying to compare and contrast and meet expectations and don't meet expectations, is we just kind of find reasons to knock ourselves down. When the biggest thing is, like you said there towards the end, is the key to success is being able to choose when you take a break and not being forced to take one.
Mm-hmm.
For a sickness or injury or burnout, because to me, the choosing to stop when you burn out isn't a choice at that moment. You made that choice on the road to being burnt out. You made those choices along the way, right? To not take breaks, to not keep perspective, to be too hard on yourself, to go all in, to, want too much from a sport that it's incapable of giving you. You made those choices along the way, because once you're burnt out, you don't have a choice. You're toast, right? And I'd say that a lot with the athletes that are consistent is, you said it's like, who cares if you miss a week, right?
Yeah.
You're so consistent all the time that if you miss a week on vacation, who cares? Because I know you're going to get back to work. And that's why you're so consistent, because one of the things, I think we touched on this a lot back in 2020, was, the thing is when you are healthy, when you do have the energy, when you do have the life set up, we all kind of get, trapped into that thinking of, it'll always be like this. I can take another few more weeks and just live in life. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what always happens, and when you see athletes get the most frustrated, is when their timing and life's timing don't intersect, right? They didn't have many work life obligations. Kids were at an age where life wasn't demanding, and they just weren't putting the work in. And then the first week they want to put the work in, the second they're like, oh, got it back, baby, here we go. Second week, your life goes to shit. And then you're so mad with everything because your choice, right, and your timing didn't line up with life's timing. And now you're just back to not doing anything. You've got to seize the moment. You've got to capitalize on your time when you have it. And then if you want to take a break, take a break. I've taken, I don't know how many breaks the last 5 years. Have I gotten the best out of myself in the last 5 years? No. Have I done pretty well? Yeah. And I'm still here and I'm still hungry. I don't know when, I'll officially take care of that appetite when it comes to performance, but I'm still here. I'm still in it. I'm still consuming, triathlon, which is a sport and a passion that I love 24/7. And then sometimes you take breaks. Like, we've got December rules coming up. Like, that's a forced break we make our athletes take, whether they like it or not. But it's about longevity. It's about longevity. Like, we had the beginning of the month in November, I had an athlete text today. He was like, man, I got to tell you, he's like, I'm up for renewal, make sure I get invoiced for a whole nother year. He was like, I'll be honest, when we first started working together, I was like, because we always talk about, a lot of our athletes we work with for just a long period of time. And he was like, I was like, I never thought that was even like possible. But now that I've gone through a whole year, he was like, I can't imagine not doing it, and doing it for years. And so I get it. And that's about having perspective and about approaching things and not going, it can't be all or nothing, right? Because honestly, if it's all or nothing, then things are haywired. It has to be, because you can get something out of pretty much anything if your focus is there, if the process is right, if your head's on straight, if your heart's in the right place. If you're only expecting to get out times or qualifications or podiums, then you're swinging at a pinata with a blindfold on. You might get some candy, but chances are it's gonna be black licorice. It's gonna be the good kind of candy. But you're barking up the wrong tree. It's about being in the sport, because being in the sport gives you the most opportunities, and to be your best, to maximize performance. And it's really it's been fascinating to watch the kind of the trajectory and focus of the sport. And how it's changed so much in the last 7 to 8 years, in terms of Strava and Zwift racing and Trainer Road and virtual courses, and how it's really the constant monitoring and obsessing with achievements or badges or courses or virtual races or this and that. It was like, man, it's like it's really changed and altered the benchmark of how you would define like process oriented, because and when I first got into the sport, I remember the first Ironman I was ever training for, Ironman Florida. I printed off the PDF training plan that I purchased from Endurance Nation. This is, I think, 12, 13 years ago, and put it on the refrigerator. And, if I wanted to work on my trainer, it was on, my old school Cyclops trainer, which is still, I think the best thing to do. And you would just watch TV, no Netflix, no nothing like that. And then you're running, you just got your Timex, or maybe you had a Garmin, but you were, back when I was training, sometimes I would go out and run for time. And then if I really wanted to find the mileage, you know what I did? Got in my car, drove to where I stopped, drove back, looking at the odometer to see how far I went. And that's if I wanted to. And now it's just like back when I was trying to walk on the tennis team when I was coming out of high school and I was trying to get better in running. I had no idea. I just knew I needed to be in better shape. I had no idea how far I was running. Or for how long. I just knew I had to run from this person's house to this person's house. I'd run down. You live in Nashville. I used to run from my house in River Oaks off Old Hickory and Granny White. I ran on Granny White at the time Boulevard. This is obviously way back in the day. No one knows what I'm talking about. But if you live in Nashville, you wouldn't dare do that now. But you just did it for time, and because you knew the time you were putting in was not just worth it, but it was worthwhile, and it was doing something for you regardless. And now everything has to be measured. Everything has to be, and you're going to say, oh, well, look at all the advancements that have come on. I agree. So many advancements have come on. But did you see how long it took for Mark Allen's, or I think it was Mark Allen, Dave Scott, his marathon record to be broken?
Yeah.
It took forever.
Yeah.
It's the trend and the advancement of technology and research and all that kind of stuff. Like, you would have thought that would have been shattered 10 years ago, and so now I think we are kind of seeing a new age in triathlon. I don't think it's as much. I don't think it's because of science and data. I actually think it's because guys that are younger, like in the ITU guys, are getting into long distance earlier, right? Back in the day, it was you did ITUs as long as you could. Then when you couldn't keep up anymore, then you moved to 70.3s. And then when you couldn't keep up anymore 70.3s, you became a person who did fulls. And I mean, get Jan Frodeno, for example, Daniela Reef, that's the trajectory. Craig Alexander was the same way. Like, that was the trajectory. That's why you saw them all in their mid to late 30s, right? Winning Ironman races. Well, now they're in their 20s, right? You got guys like Sam Laidlow and Eden and Blumenfeld and others that have been doing this since they were 6 years old. And that's why you're seeing them be able to do things that are spectacular, because their body is at a totally different stage in life. And they devoted their entire life to this one distance. And obviously not the Norwegians have, but Sam Laidlow has. And so it's just, it's fascinating. But going, I guess staying more on topic was, it's challenging as a coach, but I also think it's made it more challenging for the athletes. And to be honest with you, I think it's played a role in the exodus of our sport from a participant standpoint. Early on, I don't think last year, I think the sport's actually growing now, but 19, 20, 21, when there were no races or there was limited races or opportunities, and in tech is so huge and everything now, people that get into the sport and you get it for the right reasons then become addicted to it for the wrong reasons. And again, there's nothing wrong with data. There's nothing wrong with technology. We all use it every day. I use it as a coach every day, data and technology and reading research papers. I do it all the time. But the thing is not for it to become your obsession, but to become a piece, right? A piece of the pie. Because if you make it the whole pie, then at some point you're not going to like the way it tastes. And then you're not going to eat anymore. And I think that's what happens. That's what happened to triathlon in a lot of ways was, it's became, you get in for the right reasons, and then you attach to it for different reasons, and you don't get out of anymore what you wanted to. And that's because, well, it's because the sport changed, right? It's because you changed, and what you wanted out of it is 100% totally different. And I think that's a huge deal. And the athletes that you've seen in sport that have been in for a long period of time, they genuinely love the day-to-day. They couldn't give less of a shit about the data and the numbers. They just love it day after day. It's just who they are. And the kicker, though, is it's a positive right, of who they are. It brings positivity, right? Not just to them physically from a health standpoint, but emotionally and mentally. When you start obsessing about a number or comparing every 30-minute run or going out expecting to run eights and you ran 8:20s and now the sky is falling, or your Garmin says 7:40 and you're like, oh, but I was running too fast. You're like, make up your mind, right? Are we happy or are we not happy? Like we can't have it both ways. And that's become, honestly, I think society is, you're either happy or you're miserable, and there's kind of really no in between. And the thing is like, it's kind of okay to be in between a lot of the times. Like, you and I celebrate our birthdays very similar. What'd you do? Same day as usual, right? I just kind of hung around the house and did not much of anything. It's even keel is a message we've been, pushing since we started. Don't get too high, don't get too low, right? Stay even. Because that's the best way to be around for a long period of time.
Yeah. And what makes it hard to stay even is overstimulation. And that's kind of where I go with the technology thing, is that a lot of good stuff out there, a lot of new things, a lot of new gadgets, whatever. But as I was thinking last night, I was kind of like, man, why am I tired? You could tell. I don't know if you have those mornings where you wake up and you got a lot of shit on your mind and you just can't get anywhere because there's so many different things that you want to do. And I just kind of lock up sometimes. And I think, to me, the overstimulation piece is what is a lot of times a problem. And I was actually thinking last night about, man, I just need to get more in my meditative place and calm the brain down. Because, I mean, you said something early on in what you just said about mindset of belief. And to me, that's everything, right? And you've talked about it before in recovery, about this idea of fake it till you make it, that kind of stuff. And for me, the mental piece of this is so huge. And we talked about a couple podcasts ago about, not getting sick. And a lot of times I joke with people when they have like some kind of little injury or niggle or something like that. And I always say, don't think about it. And I joke about it, but I really mean it, because there's so many times when what was that Tony Robbins guy? He's always talking about your state of being at the moment and how to change your state. And if you're, laboring and in this like woe is me phase all the time, and there's ways to get out of it by just changing your mindset. And by a lot of times that we talk about movement is medicine. And I think a lot of times that's exactly what it is. I go to the pool yesterday and I was a little bit off, and by the end I was not quite on, but it definitely shifted my, the way I was looking at the day and things like that. But as far as, doing this day in and day out, you have to kind of calm what's going on around you a little bit. Again, back to Eden and Blumenfeld, doing a lot of interviews and stuff. Maybe they'll be able to do it. They're younger. They don't have maybe as many, at least manufactured, because I think that's what happens too, is when you're younger, you just don't give a shit about a lot of stuff. And then when you get older, you start manufacturing all these little damn things that keep creeping in your head. And you're like, I still haven't changed my license plate in Wisconsin, and I have a car problem. And now I'm like, fuck, how do I get a new title? And all, like all that crap just hangs around and really disrupts, productivity, whether it's in training or work or whatever, so it's just weird, man. But so that was, I guess, my lesson from last night was that I just really need to sit in meditation and calm these things down and just get the brain a little bit more under control, instead of having monkey brain all the time and worrying about every little thing and what have you. It's just sort of like calm it down, and then you can see your decision a lot clearer, or you can see your motivation a lot clearer without kind of, almost irrelevant thoughts popping in there to disrupt you. And if you're trying to get a mindset of belief, it's a lot easier than, like yesterday, if I would have, calculated my training stress score on that swim, it would have probably been like, 85, but it was really probably a 20, so it's like, why was that swim so hard for me? Well, maybe it's because I didn't eat well the night before and drank coffee all morning and whatever. You know, that's the stuff that becomes relevant to me. Because, you know, if you look at a hard work, like sometimes, I mean, when I started with you and back in, you know, 10 years ago, we would just do hard things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we didn't really look at what they were. I mean, I had a chrono watch for the first 5 years of my triathlon experience, and I'd just be out running with you guys or whoever, and I didn't know where we were, how far we had went. We just had to keep running, and we'd tackle hills and do all these hard things and just get done with it. And, you know, and just know intuitively that we just did something hard and we worked at it, you know, rather than always having to, wait a minute, did I have a good run today? Let me go check the numbers. I mean, come on. If you can't gauge it based on how you feel and the effort you put in and how it felt during, I mean, I've never understood that really, how I would go to the data and decide if I worked. That's just me.
There's two things. One was just a kind of a reflection. The other one was kind of an aha moment for me. But the first one was, I mean, yeah, back in like, even before that, remember we'd have conversations sometimes after like long, especially from long rides sometimes. And we'd be like, I wonder how far we went today.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, gotta be 80. I mean, for sure we went 80. Of course, it was either 60 or it was probably 100. Right? One of the two. It was probably never actually 80, but no one cared. Right. It was just, we just loved it. And we had fun. And the other one was when you're talking about extremes. Right. And I think one of the biggest differences you can have, you mentioned me being in recovery, and this is always the time of year I get kind of like, I'm not saying emotional, but I kind of go back through my life, and like, cause this turning of the seasons, like heavy fall was when I was like the worst place in my life. And now I'm in the best place in my life, and I'll be 9 years sober this next month. And then I was thinking about, man, 9 years is forever. And then I was thinking about what next year will be like when I celebrate 10. And then half of me is like, don't get ahead of yourself. And then the other part of me is like, but you're going to make it. So what I think is, this is true with a lot of people, is that you can be both, right? But you can't live there. You need your extremes to drive the middle, right? And that's where you should stay. Like I have a very healthy fear and respect of being alcoholic, and what it would mean to drink and what the disease does to people. But I also have a very, very, very high level of confidence that I'm never going to drink again.
Yeah.
So I have both, right? I have a healthy fear, but I also have a very, a large, boost of confidence. One, from time, right? From time being sober, and determination and belief, right? But I don't live there every day. I don't live in, I'm never going to drink again, or God, I'm probably going to drink again today. I live in the middle, right? Which is the day to day, which is, all right, this is how you got here, right? The fear got you here, and now you've been here for so long, now you got the confidence, but don't stay too confident, because as I've said before in a few podcasts, one of the first things my sponsor told me was like, you're not going to drink on your worst day. You're not going to drink on your best day. You're going to drink on a Tuesday for no damn reason, because it's going to sneak up on you. And I've always remembered that. But I think that's the same thing in training, right? Don't live off your best day and your best race forever, right? Mm-hmm. Don't live off your worst workout forever. Don't, be in the middle, right? Let your great workouts fuel that confidence that, yeah, I've got it in me. Yeah, I can definitely do this, right? And then let that fuel you going back to the day to day after day consistency, the process, getting the work done, doing all the small things that got you that great workout, that great race. But then going back to like, remember the hard days. Remember the terrible workouts and the terrible races, or the first workout back from a long layoff of bad choices, or just being lazy or unmotivated. Remember how crappy that felt. Don't live there like you're never going to be good again or never going to get your fitness back. But remember what it feels like. There's nothing wrong with remembering what it feels like. Just don't live there in either direction. Don't live on your high horse, and don't live in the ditch, right? Remember them, think about them, but use them to propel you and to motivate you to do the day-to-day. Because but the choice is what day-to-day are you going to choose? Are you going to choose the day after day routine and habit and time management and commitment and motivation that led you to the great day? Or are you going to do the one that led you to the bad day? right? Or, are you gonna latch on to this one race that you did great, 5 years ago, and that's who you are, or are you gonna latch on to the negative one, right? Neither, right? If you're continuously want to get better, you remember and respect the really, really, really bad days, the really, really, really bad races, but you also remember and appreciate the great days. But you just can't live there, because if you live there, then every other workout you do is going to suck, because it's not going to be good enough. It's just not going to be good enough. And you can only live in that space for a very limited amount of time before you go out and do something stupid, which is override. Most of the time it's overrun and hurt yourself, or do too much, or go a longer distance, or go too hard an interval. Then you're hurt, and then you're on the shelf, right? Or if you can live off, all your negative stuff, and then be like, I'm just never going to be any good. I'm never going to be a good runner. I'm never going to be a good swimmer. I'm never going to be a good cyclist. You're right. You're not. Yeah. And nothing you do is going to change that, because if that's your mentality, right, then you're going to become who you say you're going to become. So that you have to kind of take the fuel and the fire from both ends of the spectrum and use that to ignite the middle, right? Which is your day-to-day stuff. And you can do that, I think, in every aspect of your life, then you're going to be successful, right? Just don't live on the extremes.
Yeah. And don't negative talk yourself like that. I that's such a big one with me, is that if don't tell yourself you suck at it, tell yourself, you are a swimmer. And that's the big one with me. I've always felt like I'm naturally a cyclist and pretty decent runner in general, but it's been a challenge. But it works better when you believe it. And I like your mindset is the belief mindset. It's just, you have to believe it, or you're never going to get good at it.
But it's kind of one of those things where, we're all wired differently, in certain, because I think too, like it's very specific to the area of life that you have, right? You can be very, very, very confident in one area of your life and not confident in the other, and it's just, it's sometimes I think we have to, do a little more introspection and pick and choose, like, all right, well, why am I so confident in this area? Well, I got this. Okay, well, if I can do this, then maybe I'll be confident in this area. Because most things in life are the same at the core, right at the base of them. And so there's good habits and there's bad habits, right? And so I think if you can take that and be positive, but again, I totally agree with you. It's the self-talk it's a giant problem with athletes that constantly negatively talk about themselves. I mean, if that's you and you're listening, something ain't right. You figure out what's going on and get it right, or just choose to stop being so damn negative. In every aspect of life, every aspect, quit being so negative. Like, find something positive to say, even if you don't want to say it. It'll feel better than being so damn negative all the time. That's just people in general, right? And how we approach life is to, think about, complain about something, or this is this, or oh my gosh, I can't. It's like, and there's a positive, and yes, some things are crappy, right? Some things are negative, or you have a negative experience, but turn it positive. And again, don't live there. Right? Don't let it ruin your day or ruin your month or some people let it ruin their year, and that's just how it is. So, again, like, we can close it there. Just believe in yourself, and if you don't, try it for a change, right? Try it. Try to believe in yourself. Try to be process oriented. Try to, try not living on the extremes, the great and the bad, because the chances are you're going to wake up tomorrow, it's going to be totally different, and the best way to be prepared for that is to be somewhere in the middle. Because you're not too high, you're not too low. But we're high on you, our listener, for giving us your time and tuning in today. And as always, we love you. We appreciate you. For more info on all the things that we do, from coaching to camps to race-specific training plans, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. Click on all the tabs to get more information there. And we will be releasing our race-specific plans on November 1st. All the details about that are on the website. And if you need anything from Mike, he's available at CrushingIron@gmail.com. And if you need anything from me specifically, I'm at C26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. That wraps it up for number 629, I guess.
629. And we'll see you guys and ladies next Tuesday.
Quick math. How many we got left to 1,000?
To 1,000? Was that 371? Yeah, 371.
All right, nice job.
Thanks, man.
Sharp as a tack.
Sure, still got it, man. Still got it.
You and your algebra. All right, buddy.
See you, dude.
See you.